Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining this session today with Onclusive and Hard Numbers on that we're entitled LinkedIn for Brand Impact. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can use both your own personal LinkedIn profile and that of senior executives within your the organization that you work for, as well as your company page to maximize the impact that you have on this very, very important social media channel.
Thanks, Daryl. Just very few housekeeping rules. Everybody is muted. We have the lovely Clem in the background who will be managing any questions. So please feel free to post your questions in the questions area during the presentation, and we will answer those at the end. So before we start, just to give you a very brief introduction into us. For those of you who don't know, I'm Trish. I work in the Solutions Consultant team in the UK. I've been at Onclusive for about 6 years now, and I guess really what I do day to day is work alongside our sales team, working with clients to address their key pain points and needs, and really kind of identify where we can help them through a mixture of really our technology and expertise, and demonstrate value. And really, it's just about kind of day-to-day turning quite often what are complex workflows into very, very simple solutions to help clients free up their time and help their business grow. And then we've also got the lovely Daryl.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm Daryl. I'm the MD and co-founder of Hard Numbers. We are a very, very happy long-term customer of Onclusive to declare a certain level of interest. They were the first subscription I think we signed when we set up Hard Numbers about six years ago. Great.
And then very briefly, for those of you who don't know what Onclusive do, we provide services essentially for every single stage of the PR life cycle. So that might be from the very early stages where you're planning your activity and your campaigns, and we help clients to make sure those messages land at the right time and look at what else is happening in their sector. It might be delivering those campaigns with really media-rich communications, making sure you're reaching out to the right stakeholders or journalists. To measure in those campaigns, we search using our global content hub. We search 28 million pieces of content on a daily basis to make sure that clients understand the earned content that they're getting as a result of that. And then finally, through award-winning media insights. So we've got a great insights team that really understand how to turn those conversations into meaningful outcomes for clients that can then fuel their future decision making. And we do all of this by combining our AI innovation with a very human-centered approach.
Thanks, Trish. And Hard Numbers, we define ourselves as a performance-driven communications, PR, marketing agency. We're called Hard Numbers for two reasons. We help ambitious, high-growth businesses achieve stretching targets, so we help our clients to achieve hard numbers, and we deliver best-in-class measurement of the impact and efficacy of the work that we do, so we deliver the hard numbers that prove we've done a good job for the businesses that we work for. So what we're going to cover today, first off, we're going to talk about how LinkedIn has become, such an important channel for organic reach. If you want to build a profile, both for yourself as a professional, as an expert in a particular area, or for people within the business or organization that you represent who have specific domain expertise that you want to leverage and get out there externally, LinkedIn's such an important channel for that. But it's also a really important channel to just generally grow awareness or an understanding of what you do as an organization and how you can help folks. We're going to talk about some specific use cases for LinkedIn. We're going to talk, clues in the name for us as a business as hard numbers. We believe in the value of first-party data and doing our own research, and we've done some research into the impact that LinkedIn profiles can have on fundraising, looking at the unicorn businesses in the UK. I'll talk you through our findings there. I'll talk you through some of the challenges that folks typically get when they try to get their execs, sometimes drag them kicking and screaming to be posting more on LinkedIn about their business, their organization, their expertise, etc. And then we're going to I'm going to hand over to Trish, and she's going to talk about how data and listening can help and give some practical a live demonstration of how LinkedIn listening can help inform the work that we all do as communicators and make us better at what we do. So just some numbers on LinkedIn about its impact, its value to you, like a kind of a why should I bother? Globally, LinkedIn has over 1 billion users and gets 350 monthly active users every single month. It is live and in use in over 200 countries globally as well. So it is a global channel to help you reach the prospective target customer audience, etc., that you might be trying to reach. Within the UK, there's about 8 million people in the UK. 45 million of them are using LinkedIn. So about 65% of the UK population, 82% of UK adults, so anyone above 18, and 66% of all UK internet users use LinkedIn. So it's an incredibly important channel to help you reach your prospective customer audience, be they consumer or B2B. A challenge that we have as professional communicators or marketers is very often the company page that we're trying to promote, that we're posting content to, that we want to drive users to, drive the audience forward, drive engagement towards, has substantially less followers than some of the most experienced, most widely profiled members of our teams. There's some research on this. So LinkedIn's talent blog found that on average, an employee's personal network, so the number of connections and followers that they have on LinkedIn, can be on average 10 times larger than the average company's following. So what that shows us is, the opportunity to reach and maximize your reach within your prospective customer audience sits within the profiles of your most experienced people within the organization, or your senior leadership, or your subject matter experts, rather than your company page. And that content shared by employees is perceived as being 3 times more authentic or more trusted than content from a company page. You will all have experienced this. 67.3% of all statistics are made up on the spot, but you will all have experienced this when you scroll through your LinkedIn newsfeed each day, and about 80% of what you see will be from individual accounts, not from company accounts. So the opportunity is how we can use and leverage personal accounts to help promote and amplify the content that we're posting on corporate channels. We should absolutely be posting and using those corporate channels, but we have to think about how we can activate and use those networks that our employees and senior leadership within the business have built up to help us amplify those messages and ultimately drive more engagement for us. If you go to the next slide. So specific use cases for LinkedIn. First off, thought leadership for senior executives. Within your organization, there will be domain experts that have unrivaled, unparalleled knowledge and expertise and understanding about what they do, about what your business does, about what the category in which you operate, the problems you help your customers solve, the context in which they all operate. And the challenge for all of us is to get that out of them and get them sharing that publicly to help grow their own profile and grow the profile of the organizations we're communicating on behalf. Ultimately, if you think about it, most communications briefs that we ever see at Hard Numbers have three core audiences they're trying to reach. One is a talent audience, one is a prospective customer audience, and one is an investor audience. Now, admittedly, as businesses get more mature, that list of stakeholders and potential audiences becomes more complex. Regulators, you know, think tanks, charities, you know, et cetera, But for most businesses, the three primary audiences they're trying to reach are talent, customers, and investors. And guess what? The data that we looked at earlier shows all of those people are on LinkedIn and using it actively every week. Gaining competitive intelligence, and this is something that Trish can talk about later, but LinkedIn is an incredibly valuable source of information about what our competitors are up to, how they're positioning themselves, what the points of difference are that they're trying to delineate between their own business, their products, their services, etc., and ours. And so using LinkedIn as a form of listening and understanding what are our competitors up to, what are they doing, how are they positioning themselves, how are they messaging themselves to these organizations. And the technology that Onclusive has gives you an amazing ability to crunch a lot of data about, you know, not just what companies are saying, but also what those individuals are saying about those companies, and really make sense of that stuff and get genuine competitive insight, which then you can turn into actionable things that you can do to help deposition your competitors, better message around particular areas in your own product or service stack to demonstrate your unique selling points versus them. And then finally, managing reputation. Because of the size of the audience that you have on LinkedIn, it is an invaluable source of basically being able to manage your reputation, to understand some of the potential crises or issues that might be being raised about businesses or organizations that we represent online, and tracking those and dealing with those and kind of playing that kind of professional communicator whack-a-mole sometimes with issues or crises that might pop up. You know, you only have to look at the moment, you know, on the LinkedIn kind of news feed every day and just see how many, you know, corporate reputation challenges are kind of breaking on social media and on LinkedIn as a platform every day. Look at the price of oil and natural gas and what's happened there in the past, you know, week alone. Look at Brewdog, for example, as an example of a distressed asset sale. You know, and lots of customers and investors and things like that expressing their frustration about that on these channels. Look at, you know, all these stories that are getting surfaced and found and amplified on LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn's a great place to manage your reputation. So if you go to the next slide. So Hard Numbers did some research into this very thing. We have a series of research reports we call Coverage to Capital. The purpose of those reports is basically to provide the insights that we can give freely to the PR and communications industry for them to make the case for investing the time, treasure, or talent in communications in some form or another. And so with this Coverage to Capital report we wanted to demonstrate a strong causal link between, or strong correlation between, activity by senior executives on LinkedIn and an outcome for the business, which we defined as funds raised. So we took the 64 at time of writing, at time that we did this analysis, 64 businesses in the UK that were UK quartered, that were unicorns, that were unicorn status. So basically UK HQ businesses that were valued at $1 billion or more and that were privately held, not publicly traded. And we looked at their media profile, we looked at their the company pages, and we looked at the CEO or founder pages on LinkedIn and on Twitter or X, as it is now. We found very few CEOs of those businesses that weren't on LinkedIn. So the vast majority of them had a profile on LinkedIn and were to a greater or lesser extent making use of that profile as well. So it was in total only 6% of the CEOs of founders or of billion-dollar privately held businesses HQ'd in the UK don't use LinkedIn. When we compared that to Twitter or X, it was nearly half. It was 42%. So it just shows you how important that channel is to that audience. If you go on to the next slide, please, Trish. So what we found is that the CEOs or the founders who had cultivated the biggest following on LinkedIn and were posting most frequently to it also attracted the highest level of investment. So when we looked at those 64 companies and their CEOs, the top 20 CEOs by largest LinkedIn follow account, basically, on average, had received £763 million of investment into their businesses. When we looked at the remainder, so at the rest, the average was of funds raised was 632 million. So what that says is, if you're cultivating a profile on LinkedIn, if you're building an audience on that channel, it's giving you a platform to demonstrate greater traction within your business, greater velocity in your business, etc., and therefore attract a greater level of investment and a greater valuation multiple associated with your business. So to coin a phrase, LinkedIn profile translates to hard numbers and hard cash. If we go to the next slide, this is a case study of that effect in action. So we work with a business called Exergy Group, and they had a cloud-based project management system for construction or other projects within the diversified energy space called Proteus. All of their executives, their senior executives, had had storied careers in the diversified energy space or in the technology space. They all had greater personal followings on their LinkedIn accounts than the corporate account. At the same time, we were trying to raise £4 million of investment for Proteus as a business, so they could then make the next investment that they needed to in their platform and help kind of make that jump to light speed that you would with a cloud-based SaaS platform like Proteus. We crunched the numbers, and the Proteus page had about 3,000 followers. The individual management team, when we added all their followers up, had over 25,000 followers. So what that said is, if we want to get a message out about Proteus is raising money and you have an opportunity to invest, we need to do it by if we want to reach the maximum audience, we'll do it by the channels of the founders and the management team of the business, not by the corporate channel. We of course did post about it on the corporate channel, but we used the management team to help really amplify and get that message out. And what we did is we took four or five key pillars of their investor prospectus around the skill and experience of the management team, the traction that they'd already had as a business, their knowledge and understanding of the diversified energy space, and innovation. And we wrote for each one of them a personal blog post that referenced their biographies, their experience, places they'd worked previously, connections they had, etc. And then we got them to post them on their personal social media channels, linking with a link in the comments going to the investor page on their website, on the Proteus website. What we saw from that campaign was that 67% of all the traffic to that investor page on their website was referral traffic from LinkedIn. So the single biggest source of traffic to their investor page to help them drum up expressions of interest in investing in the business was that LinkedIn campaign that we did. 100% of the traffic to the channel, to their site, was via the organic channel. So there was no paid investment and no other channels that we used to help drive the traffic. So again, we weren't boosting posts or things like that, although I think that's a good thing to do, by the way. And ultimately, money talks. We raised over 4.25 million, so we exceeded the target that the business had for the for investment. So fingers crossed, tick box, job done. So hopefully that gives you not just the sort of numbers that speak to it, but also a practical use case here. So I was at an event with Onclusive recently. We had a round table of professional communicators and marketers, and we talked about wanting to use senior executives to help communicate our message and engage with and share our posts and build a profile, all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, everyone got really interested in how you manage, how you encourage, cajole, elbow, bribe, whatever you need to do with senior executives and domain experts within your business to get them sharing more of that content, more of that expertise, more of that knowledge that they have in the business. So here's some possible approaches or challenges and ways to go about it. One, you can ghostwrite posts for people, which we did in the case of the Exergy post for those folks, right? The challenge you have with ghostwriting is the point of this is we're supposed to be getting the domain expertise that these people have out of their heads and onto social media and out there, right? So one way to go about doing that is maybe set aside some time in their diary, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Don't go above that because senior people won't give you that time. And just ask them loads of questions and get the stuff out of their heads, and get Otter or Granola or something like that to transcript up that for you, and then you've got a data bank, an information bank of all the things they think about this stuff, and then you can use that to write content for them. Okay, that's one way you can go about doing it, but that is definitely a challenge. If you ghostwrite stuff for people, how are you getting their domain expertise in there? Consistency and frequency. You have to post at least once a week. I have found that a challenge, and I had my granddad sadly passed away in January, and basically for the whole month of January I wasn't really on LinkedIn, and I have definitely experienced as a result a fall in my organic reach. As a result, my granddad is far more important to me than my LinkedIn follower count, so I have no regrets about that. But you have to be in it to win it, and you have to be posting. I say all the time at Hard Numbers, success is consistency over time, and it's nothing else, right? So, and that is true of everything you do in your personal, professional life. So you have to be consistent, you have to be at it, you have to be posting at least once a week to LinkedIn, so the algorithm knows who you are, sees your content, knows who engages with it, and boosts, and gets it. And you've got to stay on that treadmill as much as you're able to. And you've got to make sure that the people that you wanted to profile in the organization are doing the same thing. So how do you keep that cadence up across that audience? And then message discipline. The other challenge is, I probably shouldn't be on the webinar talking about how the fact my granddad passed away in January. It's hard to keep senior people on message, on brand, saying the things you want to be them to be saying the right things that you want to be saying about the organization, the business, your product, your service, etc. That's really important, right? So that is a challenge that we have as a professional communicators, keeping everyone on message. So again, I think that goes back to the importance of monitoring this stuff as well, and Trish can talk about that in a bit more detail. If you go to the next slide, please, Trish. So this is how data and listening can help, and this is how it's essential to maximizing this stuff, right? So one, to help us make the case to our execs and to the business for us investing time and effort on LinkedIn as a channel for the corporate page, and to our execs, getting the cumulative reach of all of the posts and everything that we're posting and the etc. is really, really helpful, because we can then give a number of, like, look, we have reached an audience of 4 million people this month through collectively all of our content, and that would have cost us X number of thousands of pounds if we were doing that via paid channels, for example, right? And that cost per reach is a really, really valuable metric to use. If you're investing in any form of paid distribution anywhere in your business, find out what your average cost per thousand reached, or what your customer acquisition cost is, right? And then compare that to the cost of reach on LinkedIn. I guarantee you that LinkedIn will be a more cost-effective channel than some of those other channels. And the other most cost-effective channel, and not to make a case for PR and communications all the time, but it's going to be PR, right? So those two things working in parallel with one another, getting PR coverage and then sharing it on LinkedIn is the, to quote Scott Galloway, the peanut butter and chocolate of of really growing your brand, your reputation, your awareness, your audience online. Monitoring really helps you, and Trish can talk about this in a moment, right? Of meeting some of these challenges we talked about, right? So listening to help you monitor the, your execs, the business, people that are sharing your content, etc., to ensure that consistency of message, that tone of voice, etc. You can use listening on LinkedIn to identify the themes, the trending topics and things like that, that you can then go away and write content about, to then parlay your, your expertise, your people, your business into the conversation, and hopefully get those, those LinkedIn editorial snippets, or, to just be part of those trending discussions on LinkedIn. And then listening for customers and prospects, right? This is so I sound like Gary Vee, don't I? No one appreciates this thing, or no one's doing this. I'm sure people are doing this, right? But I think it is a really underappreciated use case and application of listening of any form of social media or any kind of earned media activity, which really speaks to how Onclusive can help us professional communicators. Like, get a list together of your customers and of your prospects, and then follow them, what they're saying, who they're talking about, or whatever, on these different platforms. You'll be amazed how much information they share about, their personal and professional lives, the problems that they have, the things like that. And that then gives you a platform to, at the right time, in the right way, approach them and say, hey, I noticed that you've got this problem within your organization. This is something we're working with other companies to deal with. Can we have a chat? So without further ado, hopefully, Trish, you feel like I've set up the next bit that you did, that you're going to take us through.
That was amazing. Thanks, Daryl. Some really good insights there as well. Consistency over time, I think, is one that I'm going to take away. And yeah, also, it's just really important to get those CEOs or key stakeholders to comment on things like government policy, economy, politics, all that thing. Good stuff. Right, let me just change my screen. So what we wanted to show you today is how you do that in practice, and how you really listen to social media channels, but specifically honing in on LinkedIn. So what we've got here is a platform looking at financial brands. This is a sector that we work quite well with at Onclusive. We've got quite a few key global finance clients. And because of that, we know that LinkedIn is a really, really important channel for these guys. So we're just monitoring these clients on the left-hand side, and at any given point, we've got a really quick snapshot of everything that's been said about them, and a really nice overview of the kind of conversations that are happening, where they're happening, and then we can dive into this in even more detail. So what we're interested in for the purpose of this is looking at their brands. We might also want to look at their particular products that they're looking at, but most importantly, we want to understand the narratives around their CEOs in this instance. So we've just taken out the CEOs of these organizations. And what you can see here is all the kind of chatter, the media conversation, the mentions that are happening across all media types. But you can see how prevalent LinkedIn is for all of these searches. So it's a really, really strong channel. And we've got some good insights that I will show you about that. But just to give you a kind of in practice, how would you use this? How does it work? You've got some really nice summaries here of all the main narratives, so you don't have to look through each individual piece of activity and understand, the sentiments, the tags. All of that can be summarized really, really nicely. You can have a really good overview of when these conversations are happening, what's being spoken about, so the kind of key concepts that are pulling through, where these conversations are happening across all channels, and who are the key kind of influencers. who are driving these conversations, whether it be by the ranking of influencers, number of followers, number of interactions, and of course the sentiment of those conversations, which is really prevalent and important for so many of our clients to manage. But what we really want to do, because we're looking at everything right now, is we want to hone in on LinkedIn specifically, and we want to compare how those messages and the chatter around those brand pages are comparing with the CEO pages. So we can measure LinkedIn, and we do that in two ways. We do keyword searches on the kind of top 30 million profiles, company profiles, top 5 voice profiles. So that chatter is picked up in that way. And we can also search by specific kind of company pages or content pages, which we do quite frequently for clients, and overlay that with the keyword searches. That's kind of what's sitting behind all of this. So the first thing we're going to look at is share of voice. This is the thing that's ultimately really interesting to a lot of our clients. So we can see here, from a brand perspective, HSBC is really strong. And from a CEO perspective, George Elideri is also really strong. And he is a very prevalent spokesperson in the finance industry on LinkedIn and across lots of different channels. But you can see here the key themes that are coming through. So it lists all of the content and where that is posted. But you can see here specifically that, you know, he's discussing a lot around AI. He also speaks at conferences. There's a lot of narratives that are driving this. And I think that's, you know, to the point that Darryl was making, when you've got those prevalent spokespeople that are more open to talking about things wider than just this is our company, this is the product, your engagement really increases. Another thing that's quite interesting looking at this chart is if we look at Revolut as an example, their brand share of voice is quite small, but actually their CEO is relatively high. So again, that would be another reason to kind of dive into that. If I was Revolut, I'd want to understand what the chatter was and how we could improve on that, you know. And I know Nick Storonsky himself is an angel investor. He appears on lots of podcasts, so there's lots of kind of extra chatter that's driving the noise around Nick that could definitely be leveraged by that brand. So this is just looking at LinkedIn, but I thought it would be useful to just compare it for brand and CEO across all channels. So we can see here, Twitter is, or X rather, is pretty prevalent. And the reason for that is around the way that the data is collected for Twitter. There's a lot of every kind of post, repost, tag, comment is collected. So Twitter is always quite a large channel, but we can see that LinkedIn is the second largest channel for both the brands and the CEOs. But what's interesting here is that it's much stronger in the CEO category than it is in the brand category. And if I were these brands, I'd really want to be working towards making these circles larger through driving those conversations through their CEOs. I think it's also useful to look at the trends, right? So HSBC, we know, is really prevalent in the finance area, as is their CEO. But how is that trending over time? And you know, you've got a really nice snapshot here. If we look at we're looking at the last month and comparing it to the previous month before that. So we can see that HSBC is trending up, which is great, but the percentage that their CEO is trending is way higher than the actual brand. So that could be something that they really want to jump on. So it's just kind of looking at your brand, your spokespeople, your competitor's brand, your competitor's spokespeople, and having it all at your fingertips and really being able to kind of understand what's driving those conversations and what you can do to quickly control that narrative. Spikes are also particularly interesting. Now, this is prefaced with a caveat. We are looking at quite huge numbers here, so it does tend to flatten out. But from a brand perspective, it's quite flat. And here, you can really sort of identify when those key conversations are happening, what they're about, and how can the brand jump behind that. So if we look at Thomas as an example, it gives us a really quick understanding of the kind of key narratives, along with all the detail around Thomas. So you can see he's been recognised for his influential leadership in French capitalism. So there's lots of narratives around that are driving those key spikes at that time. And then sentiment, obviously, this is really important to so many brands. Personally, looking at this, I wouldn't be concerned particularly for brand or CEO. It's all relatively positive. But what the areas of interest for me on this is, George is got a very strong sentiment rating, and HSBC as a brand is still strong, but not as strong as his sentiment rating. Or it might be there's an instance where Jean Laurent has a net 18.8% negative rating, but actually the brand isn't as negative as that. So you could dive into that and understand what's happening with that, and why is that sentiment trending higher. And then lastly, this is just a nice kind of visual overview. Whenever you're doing this kind of listening, the key kind of concepts will pull through, and you can link through to all of that, all of those mentions behind it. This is quite visual, and it's just quite a quick snapshot for any brand to see that these are the main words that are coming through, the main concepts, and this is how it differs with our CEOs. So I'm just going to take a pause and see if we have any questions in the chat, Glenn.
Yes, we got, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep. Good.
Perfect. Yeah, we got one question from Sarah asking if where is best to post the link, if it's in the LinkedIn post itself or as a first comment.
Yeah, so best practice at the moment still is put it in the comments. It's hard though. It's hard because you will still experience some form of, you won't get the same level of reach if you have a link somewhere in your comments, whatever that link is, rather than if you hadn't in the first place. But you obviously want to merchandise the fact that you've had coverage, or there's a downloadable ebook of something, or there's a whatever. One of the things I do to get around this problem, when we get media coverage, for example, and I want to talk about it and share it on our social media platforms, please don't think I'm a narcissist by what I'm about to say. Faces perform very, very well on LinkedIn, right? One, unique photography performs well on LinkedIn. So a photo that LinkedIn's never seen before, that typically performs well and will always perform better than stock. Also, anything with a face, anything with a person, every single test I have ever done on paid and organic posts say that when there's someone's face on the post, it gets a higher click-through rate. It gets either the click to read or the click through to an actual whatever the thing is, and that is on paid, it's on organic, it's a multi-channel, all the rest of it. So I have a picture taken of me holding my iPad with the something that I want people to see on my iPad, and that's what I then use to merchandise coverage. So we had some coverage in PR Week, for example, that I wanted to show off about. So I had a picture of me holding an iPad with our coverage on PR Week, and that's what I use to kind of promote the post. But yeah, best practice would be in the comments, not in the main body of the post, but you will still experience a suppression in your reach because you've got a link to something somewhere else. The reason for that, if you all, I'm sure you're all smart people, you all know, is that LinkedIn doesn't want to refer traffic to anywhere else. As with all the other social media platforms and all the other web-based platforms, it is all about maximizing the amount of time you spend natively on their platform. So they want you to stay there. That's why they like vertical video, because natively it means that people stay on there longer because they click to watch it. It's why they always promote Pulse and, you know, LinkedIn newsletters and, you know, articles and things like that, and they always perform well on LinkedIn. It's because ultimately they want you to stay on platform and not click and go anywhere else. So that's why it happens. But yeah, that's my kind of best practice for trying to navigate that stuff.
Thanks, Darren.
Hopefully that's yeah.
Another question that we had was concerning company profiles versus personal profiles, and what does it mean for corporate accounts? Are they still relevant? Should we still have them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Trish, do you want to cover the like monitoring implications of it in a minute, and I'll kind of cover the like communications part of that question. So from a communications perspective, I would always, it is, you know, your personal post will have a greater reach probably than your than the company page or the post of your senior execs or your thought leaders or whatever within the organization. It's still worth having a company page, and it's still worth doing. What I would do is get your senior, you know, execs and your people who've got a big audience on LinkedIn to, once you post on the company page, like and comment on the post. Do not repost, and do not repost with thoughts, definitely within the first 24 hours. Okay, what you want your audience, your internal audience to do is like and comment. Likes for show, comments for dough on the post. Likes are what's called soft engagement, comments are what's called hard engagement. Why? Because it's easy to like something, it's harder to actually sit there and write something about a comment. So that's the kind of reason. LinkedIn's algorithm values the kind of the hierarchy of engagement with a post is like, or the other like style engagements, you know, then reposts, then comments. You don't want to repost, definitely not within the first 24 hours, right? Because basically, if you repost, people are very often tempted to repost with thoughts. And if they repost with thoughts, what they do is create effectively a copy of that post that will compete with the original post for likes and comments and engagement. And it will basically take, you know, likes, comments and engagement that would otherwise accrue back to that original post if they just reposted it. And so actually, they're not helping you by reposting something from the corporate page within the, you know, if they do it within the first 24 hours. The golden hour for a LinkedIn post is the first hour after you post it, and in that period of time you want a minimum of 20 comments. Good thing about comments is if it's a comment from someone, you can then reply, and that's 2 comments, 2 for the price of 1. And then the other thing that you want ideally is comments that are a minimum of 15 words. And then any post that I've ever had or that I've ever seen do more than 10,000 views on LinkedIn has always had 20 comments in the first hour. So basically, that's your kind of, you know, so do that on your company page posts. Then maybe a day or 2 later, by all means, because your senior execs might want to share that, repost that news to their channel, or they might want to repost with thoughts and add their own contacts, fine, have at it. But in that first 24-hour period, to maximize, definitely that first hour, to maximize the reach of that LinkedIn post, likes and comments. Sorry, that was a bit of a long, waffly answer to the question, but hopefully that was helpful.
Really useful.
Sarah, thank you. Sorry, Trish.
I love that golden hour. Yeah, really, really useful stuff, actually. From a listening perspective, company pages are public, so they're very, very easy to monitor. personal accounts are restricted by GDPR. So when we measure those kind of personal names and conversations, it's more around the kind of mentions and the conversations around those individuals. So you do, you know, in the GDPR, there's nothing you can do about that. If you do have key spokespeople within your brand that you want to monitor, and you have their permission, there are ways of you being able to, you know, monitor their individual pages. But obviously that's a discussion that you will need to have with them.
Thank you, Trish. Another question for you is, what happens in the instances where your CEO spokesperson is trending negatively?
Oh, yes. That's always a worry. You can't exactly control what your spokespeople say. And yeah, with social media, I guess that's a struggle. It's fast and things can change really, really quickly. But that's the advantage with the social listening tool. If you can have that view at speed that allows you to see exactly when something is flaring up, what's being said, and you can kind of jump on that and try and minimize the damage or control the narrative, that's really, really powerful, being ahead of the curve. And it's really simple to do. You can just set up alerts. We can set up alerts for you where if a CEO or a spokesperson spikes over a certain number of mentions, you get an email straight into your inbox with a really quick snapshot summary of that, to just keep you informed at the fastest time possible.
Yeah, I can give you a couple of practical examples of where this has happened, you know, for us and what we've done and how we've used social listening, you know, to deal with this, you know, to deal with this stuff. So we have one client who's sadly no longer with us as a company because of corporate financing reasons and things like that I won't go into, but basically they're a company called Onto, which was an electric vehicle subscription company, and there was their fleet, they had one particular car, electric car, more than any other car that they basically had within their fleet, and there was this but like downgrade of the safety certificate effectively for that car that happened by this testing facility somewhere, and they posted about it on LinkedIn. And initially the business went into like overdrive, like, oh, we need to communicate about this, we need a press release, we need to do this, we need to do that, all the rest of it. And our counsel was, just wait a little bit and see what happens. And because we were able to monitor you know, the social web, you know, and all the rest of it, we were able to then see, actually, you know, this story ended up going nowhere, didn't get shared a lot, didn't get a lot of engagement, didn't get a lot of big audience, all the rest of it. So actually it would have been like the Barbara Streisand effect for us all of a sudden to like kick in this big communications effort around this, particularly when it wasn't actually their product, it was a product that, you know, that was part of their fleet, right? So the kind of practical implication of that was really helpful. Another that I will not talk about, I won't name the company because we no longer work with them and I don't want to give them the oxygen of publicity, but also they weren't the nicest company to work with. Their CEO said some very, very ill-advised things about some countries in Europe in an interview that they did with a very key media outlet. And the media outlet initially published it. And so despite us having briefed her on what to say and what not to say and all the rest of it, she went wildly off script. So obviously we had to do the thing of talking to the journalist and seeing if we could get the piece edited and all the rest of it. But then we also had to like track as a topic the countries that she talked about to just see, did this go anywhere, did this happen, did this, you know, all the rest of it, was there an association, was it talked about, CEO, company, these countries, do we need to do something about this? Luckily, again, it didn't metastasize. We didn't see lots of people talking about these things that she'd said, you know, online. So we didn't have to do anything about it beyond addressing the original article and you know, saying please try and stay on message in future to the CEO. But that again, that speaks to the value and the benefit of that social listening, because again, it just helps you make the case with data. Is this an issue that's going to become a crisis, or does this just stay as an issue, and it's, to use the old vernacular of someone who's been in the media business as long as me, it's chip paper tomorrow. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Daryl. Another question for you. So Daryl teased the importance of LinkedIn advertising. Would you recommend it as a biz development channel for agencies?
100%.
Yes.
big fan. Matter of fact, I used a bit of paid investment on a post that I did about this webinar as a sort of a busman's like out of interest, right? Like because I'm doing doing a webinar on LinkedIn. I'm promoting it on LinkedIn. Let's boost the post, see what happens. It got about 6x the reach of a post that I would normally do through that paid boosting, and I think it got a number of signups, you know, for this this event as well. So it's kind of like job done. It cost me about £75, you know, and to get, you know, I don't know, 5, 10 or whatever people to sign up for a webinar via other paid channels, it probably cost you more. The beauty of boosted posts is you're paying, without getting too technical and without hopefully talking in too many acronyms, you're paying CPM, cost per thousand reached, right? You're not paying CPC, cost per click. Cost per click is always more expensive, right? If you're paying for a click, it always leads to higher customer acquisition costs, because clicks can happen for myriad different reasons that are not you know, that don't ultimately result in you getting a sign up or a download or a free trial user or whatever the thing is that you're trying to promote, right? So but whereas with CPM, when you pay cost per thousand reach, it's much more cost effective. So I could put £75 behind the, you know, into boosting the post, get 6x the audience I otherwise would have got. You know, it makes perfect sense, I think, for me. So I would definitely, one thing to say is you can boost your own individual posts, or, and I see this a lot now, company pages boost the post of their thought leaders or senior execs or whatever, and it gets that kind of like, because again, as we saw from that data from, I think it was Refine Labs, individual posts are trusted 3x more than company pages. So if you're boosting, if the company is paying money to boost the individual's post, that gets more, that has more trust associated with it, all the rest of it. So yeah, I would say that's the kind of the right approach to making an investment in paid on LinkedIn.
Thank you. We're getting a few more questions, but I see that we are approaching the end, so I think maybe we can go for another 2 questions, but we will be getting back to the other questions in via the follow-up email anyway. So the next one is, what's the better option / difference between writing a LinkedIn article versus publishing a LinkedIn newsletter?
The challenge always with this is, right, you want to build on your own land rather than rented land. If it, you know, like if you're going to do a newsletter, like, is there a way that you could do it? Or if you're going to write an article, if you gave me the option, I would do it on a blog, right? On the company blog or the rest of it. And then I would use LinkedIn and other forms of, you know, online, you know, social media and online or whatever as the distribution channel for that content that sits on my owned platform. Okay. That said, there is a benefit of reach that you get by doing it natively on the platform. and LinkedIn is definitely gunning for Substack and Beehive at the moment. Substack and Beehive are two like email newsletter platforms that make it very easy to spin up and create your own newsletters. Content from those newsletters doesn't perform anywhere near as well as LinkedIn newsletters perform in terms of reach, etc., for all the reasons we've already talked about. So there's this tension that you've got between the reach that you can get, sorry, well, there you go, the reach that you can get for something and that desire to have it on an owned platform or an owned channel rather than building on rented land, because you are only ever one algorithm change away from that you know, that not working anymore, or that not being there anymore, or that not being discoverable anymore. You know, LinkedIn doesn't really use hashtags anymore, for example. You used to be able to put hashtags in the post, click on it, see how many people were searching for that hashtag or following that hashtag, sorry, and then you could like optimize hashtags that you're using in post based on the number of followers, right? That doesn't work anymore as a thing, which is annoying. The algorithm changes all the time. Functionality that, or tricks or things that worked previously might not work again. So those are the things that you're mediating between. If you're going to hold a gun to my head, and I hope no one does, and say, you know, make the decision what you're going to do, I would say I would do it on my own platform, on my blog, and then I would share that. I would use LinkedIn as a distribution channel for that content externally, rather than do it natively on the platform. But other opinions are available.
Thank you. And I think we're going to end with some, I guess, words of wisdom around reposting in general, which I guess we can all use. So best practice for reposting, please.
Don't repost with thoughts. Is like, you know, like always ask your audience, you know, if they are going to repost, just repost. Don't repost with thoughts. People always ask me, why does LinkedIn then give you the opportunity to repost with thoughts? The reason is because the majority, more than 80% of users of LinkedIn consume content, they don't create content. It's only the top 20% of LinkedIn users that actually ever create any content or create their own posts on the channel. So LinkedIn repost with thoughts is the kind of entry level drug, if you like, that LinkedIn's trying to sell you to then get you to be comfortable and confident in creating your own, because it's easier to just like share something the corporate channel's already done and put your own words on it, or say, oh, this is great to see this, or something like that, and then put it out. It is doing you no favors from a reach perspective and an algorithm perspective. So what you want is likes, comments, and if people want to repost that stuff, do it later on. If they're going to repost it, better to do it just repost, not repost with thoughts. If they're determined to repost with thoughts, 24, 48, 72 hours after the original post is been posted.
Noted, thank you. So we all know what to do after this webinar. Well, thank you very much. I think we're at the end of our time now. So thank you to you both, and thank you to all of you in the audience. We'll be following up with the recording and the slides in an email, and wish you a good rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to take part.